On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, SGA is an absolute superstar. He has a chance on Wednesday to make a statement against Luka Doncic. Plus, Josh Giddey's scoring profile could be overhauled this year. We'll talk about how on the Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by Birddogs, we're going to dive into the Thunder really stealing the stage at the FIBA World Cup tournament and SGA having a statement game against Luka on Wednesday, plus the Josh Giddey improvement that we saw from the 20-year-old. Again, today's show is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or enter your promo code at LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle with your purchase. So you will not want to wait to take your Birddogs offer today, because once you get them, you're not going to want to take them off. We promise you that. You can also text the show at 405-963-3686 because we have some great stuff for you over there. You always have a direct line and front of the line access to whenever we ask for your questions, whenever we ask for your hot takes. Already have a few from the text line for tomorrow's show. Plus, the rumors that we're hearing and everything to be alerted whenever we go live, all that good stuff is over there on subtext. So make sure you do that as well. But let's start with SGA. SGA is a superstar. And I think that all of the questions should be put to bed right now. If you are worrying that last year was a fluke, or that last year maybe he caught some teams off guard, or that last year it's easy to do because of where the Thunder were at, put that all to bed right now. In a must-win game, a win or go home contest against Spain, for a team that had plenty of expectations. They are the second favorites to win the Cup. Team Canada is. And in a World Cup run that had a ton of hype around it for Team Canada, where you have the likes of Tim Bontemps saying that SGA is better than Luka Doncic and going on a massive diatribe on that about 5 different platforms that he did to hype up SGA, hype up Team Canada, hype up this event. Team Canada gets upset, to start the weekend, bookends the weekend with a must-win game over Spain, gets down 12 points entering the final quarter, and SGA goes on a massive run. So for everyone who thought maybe last year was a fluke because there was no expectations, or the Thunder were slept on, or people didn't care or didn't get up for that game, or didn't zone in against the Thunder, SGA continues to produce at this level at every stage. He played a team high 36 minutes, was absolutely gassed at the end of that game, but he still managed to take over the fourth quarter, put up 30 points, dish out 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals against just 1 turnover. Only 1 turnover all night and a +1 in that contest. He shot 58% from the floor, maintaining that efficiency as the stakes get higher and higher in these games that he plays. Goes 2 for 3 from 3, is 14 for 16 at the free throw line, and even made a technical foul free throw, which if you watch the Thunder, the technical foul free throws are not guaranteed for these Thunder players. And the ending sequence of this game. So remember, Spain goes on this massive run. It looks as though Spain has broken the backs of Canada, and that they put the exclamation point on a 12-0 run with Usman Garuba throwing down an alley-oop in transition to in the quarter. At the end of this game, it was SGA who dished out the assist to Dylan Brooks. That 3 tied the contest. SGA had as long of a mid-range 2 as you could possibly have in step-back form. It made Carmelo Anthony proud how deep it was without being a 3. Nailed it. That takes the lead for Team Canada. Very next play, SGA gets it done defensively. Again, playing 36 minutes and still performing on both ends. Gets it done defensively with a steal. That forces Spain to foul him. Goes to the free throw line, makes them both. Team Canada up 4. Makes the second pair of free throws that he draws because, Spain, of course, had to foul him. 86-82. Spain nails a 3. It's now a 1-point game. And yet again, ice in his veins. SGA nails both free throws. That's your ball game. Spain is down 3 at that point, and it's over. He absolutely controlled the game. Controlled it with scoring, controlled it with defense, controlled it with playmaking. He's gotten a lot better as a playmaker throughout last season, and now especially this summer, he's taken a leap as a playmaker, and that might be the leap that we see from him this year in the NBA, because every year he's brought back after a summer development a new skill set, a new area in which he dominates. That could be it this year as his playmaking ability. But SGA looked like an absolute star. And he is, in my opinion, without question, a top 10 player in the NBA. And you're seeing why right here. Every question you put in front of SGA, he answers it, and he passes every test with flying colors. Again, this is a high-stakes game. This is probably the biggest game of his career. You go back to the playoff run with the Clippers. He's a rookie. They were overmatched by Golden State, still battled in that contest, in that series, still did really well for the Clippers. The bubble playoff series was weird. You losing 7 to the Rockets, it didn't really matter. This play-in run was, to that point, his most, pressurized game because he's the guy on a postseason team trying to get these win-or-go-home contests. But then you go to FIBA. Again, you're playing with the second best team in the tournament, who has the second best odds to win the whole thing. Your back's against the wall. Got called out by your coach after the upsetting loss. Things are falling apart around you. Kelly Olynyk is still jacking up horrific shots, and you could not have designed a worse close to the third quarter than that. If you tried to map out a roadmap of the very worst things that could happen to Team Canada at the end of that third quarter, that was it right there. And you still were able to lead the way to a 12-point comeback in one quarter, which is so shortened quarters in FIBA, and get the win. That's very impressive. That gives you a glimpse into the future of the Thunder. The Thunder have one of those guys that in games like this, you're never out of it. In games like this, you can't say die. In series, in must-win games, you have a player who can will you to wins. You have a player who can be one of the clutchest players in basketball. You have a player who can get you over the hump, and he did that for Team Canada. And he got them to the knockout round. And now he has the opportunity to make a statement, to not only perform on the, on the big world stage in the FIBA tournament, but it's also about who he's playing against in this quarterfinal matchup. It's about taking on Luka Doncic. It's about taking on Slovenia. And entering a game where, right or wrong, the only thing that's going to matter in this game, in the eyes of most NBA fans, is going to be Shai versus Luka. And so even for the 16-win improvement, even for the All-NBA season, even for the All-Star season, even for the MVP, fifth place MVP voting, even for all of that, he still, can legitimize that in the eyes of many NBA fans with this upcoming NBA season, playing more on nationally televised games, but also with this game against Team Canada and against Luka Doncic, with Team Canada against Luka Doncic. We'll talk about that coming up. We're going to talk about Josh Giddey and the scoring impact that he can have in the NBA after he capped off his World Cup run. Plus, the Thunder have a little bit of a Davis Bertans dilemma that we're going to dive into right here on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com right now. That's birddogs.com right now to get started. Because whenever you do, you're going to go there, birddogs.com/lockedon. And whenever you do, bada bing, bada boom, you're going to browse their endless supply of fantastic apparel. They have these stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit all the way slim through your thigh and just give you that still sculpted look while also still bringing you breathability, still bringing you flexibility, because they're versatile. They're very versatile. The Birddog shorts are positionless. You can walk into a business meeting and you can wear them in said meeting and look professional and look well put together and look like you belong. But you can walk out of that business meeting and go play pickleball, go play basketball, go do something fun outside in the summer, and still feel in place and feel like you can have all the mobility that you need to accomplish that. You can also wear them on a night out, anywhere you want to. You can wear these shorts and they will look like you belong. So check them out today by going to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. That is birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. And whenever you do, you get a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. So check it out today at birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Thunder on YouTube, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, and hit us up at 405-963-3686. You can text the show directly. You can get text from me about the Thunder, about the show, everything that you need. So go over there as well, and on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. So here we are talking about the FIBA World Cup. And SGA can make a statement against Luka Doncic. He really can. SGA can make a statement in this game Wednesday against Slovenia. Yes, I know that the SGA has a better collection of talent on his team, but this will still be a great showcase for SGA to play against Luka Doncic. And there were already whispers, as we mentioned, coming into this tournament about SGA and his place in the NBA, his standing in the NBA in terms of how good is he, top X player in the NBA. And there were some whispers about SGA versus Luka, mainly again by Tim Bontemps. So this is a big game for Tim. This is a big game for SGA. But SGA is a legitimate superstar. He's a top 10 player in this league, in my opinion. He finished 5th in the MVP voting last year. And Wednesday, September 6th, at 7:15 Central, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN Plus. This will offer NBA fans a chance to see him and kind of appreciate what he's done as an NBA player to this point. Of course, he's doing it in FIBA in this instance. But 8:15. This is one of the better times that he's played. Of course, in FIBA, that's still early, but East Coast fans can certainly tune in if they want to. 7:15 is not too bad for Central Time Zone fans to tune in. And I think that even the highlights afterward and the pub that this will get just across social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, on every format that you're on, you'll be seeing the NBA and NBA creators and NBA just people talking about those two dueling it out on Wednesday. So it's a chance to make a huge statement and a huge arrival to the scene, because of course he's already arrived to Thunder fans, but I think that nationally NBA fans still don't really know what to do with Shai. Like whenever someone does hype up Shai and say, yeah, he's a top 10 player, top whatever player, there's always comments that are like, what are you talking about, man? SGA is not, X good, whatever number that the person put on him. And I think that a lot of that comes with, the visibility of SGA. To this point, it's been limited because the Thunder have had limited national TV games. That's upticked in this upcoming season. The Thunder will be better this upcoming season. And now you have a chance to play Luka on a big stage in a win or go home game. And there's one thing about sports fans. They love win or go home games. Thunder fans should love what Josh Giddey's doing. Josh Giddey has finished his FIBA World Cup run. He makes his FIBA debut at 20 years old, and the Boomers had a overall disappointing run as a team. The team, Australia, was projected to go further, at least to make the knockout round stages. They were projected to get deeper, as this was, I would say, their best collection of talent that they've had as a squad. And you all can correct me, of course, if I'm wrong. I don't want to disrespect any other previous Boomer squad, but I think that this was the best squad that they had. And they got knocked out prior to the quarterfinals, which is not great. But individually, Josh Giddey looked really good. In that last game against Georgia, of course, Georgia was overmatched. The stats don't matter, but they were 19 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. He was the best player on the floor. But again, Georgia was overmatched, so we can admit that. And it was a rather meaningless game because neither team could advance with a win. Like it just was over for them with the way that the tournament set up. But a few things stood out about Josh Giddey and his run in FIBA. So in that game against Georgia, he pulled out this spinning Dirk one-legged fade, which got everyone's attention. It was a great play. But when you zone in on that and kind of zero in on that, for as much talk as there has been about Josh Giddey and his three-point shooting, and of course, that has to continue to improve. That has to continue to climb. What I think could really overhaul Josh Giddey as a scorer and thus as an offensive weapon is everything inside the arc. So he's been a pretty good mid-range shooter for all intents and purposes. 44% his rookie year, 43% last year. At the rim, he's still been below average. 57% rookie year, 62% last year. If he can become an overwhelmingly good mid-range shooter and use that floater, use the fadeaway, use kind of that mid-range look that he's pulled off a bit in FIBA, if he can become really good at the mid-range and punish smaller matchups as he did in FIBA and as he did at the end of the NBA season. Punish as a 6'8 guard smaller matchups, taking them to the rim hard and bumping them off their spots and finishing at the rim. If he can do those two things, it overhauls who he is as a player. Because with more defensive attention, with more defensive rotation, with defenses gearing up to stop him inside the arc, then that opens up so many passing lanes for an active Thunder offense that loves to cut and loves to move and loves to get in position to receive beneficial passes. You have an elite playmaker already. Josh Giddey is simply an elite playmaker, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if you can get defenses to care more about his scoring prowess, then that makes his life so much easier as a passer, and it continues to add to the idea that this is going to be a pick your poison offense. You can't necessarily overcommit and overhelp even their superstars in SGA because it leaves open really, really talented players like J-Dub, like Chet, and like Josh Giddey if he can continue to progress. He progressed at the rim last year, went from 57% to 62%. He progressed from three last year, went from 27% to 33%. And then at the mid-range, he maintained. He was 44% as a rookie, down to 43% as a sophomore. That in the scheme of averages, that's pretty just maintained for him. If he can continue to improve in all those areas, then specifically mid-range and rim, I think that's more important than becoming a better three-point shooter necessarily. Now look, if he can become a 40% three-point shooter, do it. But at the end of the day, even his ceiling as a three-point shooter might just be a league average one and might just be a guy who only takes threes in the flow of an offense or only takes threes on catch and shoot looks. And that is still very limiting because of the flow of a game. How often will those opportunities occur? Whereas if you can dominate sort of at your own will at the rim and at the mid-range with your passing prowess, it can really help. You can really help Josh Giddey turn into a bigger threat offensively because he's an elite inbounder, an elite playmaker, an elite passer. If you can add that rim finishing to be an elite level as a 6'8 guy who's 20 years old and still growing into his body and still developing, which I think he can, and he can become a really good mid-range shooter, it changes his scoring profile, it changes his portfolio, and it changes the outlook of Josh Giddey's career. So as much as it's to be made by his three-point shooting, I think that those other areas are more significant. So whenever you include the exhibition slate, Josh Giddey finishes by averaging 16 points, 5.8 assists, 5.6 rebounds, 0.4 stocks per game. The big kicker, he shot 50, not 50. I wish he shot 50, but he shot 5.6 free throw attempts per game, which is a massive climb from his 1.7 NBA average per game. It's a 5.6 average in FIBA of free throw attempts, which brings your scoring plateau to a higher level. You see it all the time in the NBA. When you get an uptick in scoring average, what usually complements it and what usually helps it happen is getting to the line more. Josh Giddey, of course, has to get to the line more in his NBA career. He shot 48% from the floor, only 13% from three. I don't necessarily want to wave the white flag and say he's regressed from three. Of course, last year he shot 33% from three in the NBA. I think that in FIBA, he was not getting the three-point looks that you want him taking. And that's more so what led to him missing more in FIBA. He shot 68% at the line. He shot 70% at the rim, which is great growth. Again, only 62% last year at the rim, up to 70. Really good job there. He was a 0.8 points per possession in the pick and roll ball handler. He was a 1.8 0.67 points per possession in transition, and a 1.2 points per possession on cuts. Really good job from him. Josh Giddey really showed a lot throughout this FIBA World Cup run. Coming up, let's talk Davis Bertans, who there's a little bit of a dilemma here for the Thunder. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Folks, you can always text the show 405-963-3686. That's 405-963-3686. Find us on Twitter at Rylan_Styles and comment on YouTube, Locked On Thunder on YouTube, because we want to hear from you. Leave us right now your hottest take that you have about the Thunder or the NBA or life in general. And I will react and grade all of them on the next Locked On Thunder podcast tomorrow. So make sure that you do just that. Now, let's talk Davis Bertans. He has made some clutch threes for Latvia. He has been a floor spacing threat, shooting deep threes. In 5 FIBA World Cup games, he's been Davis Bertans. He's scored 12 points per game, 1 assist per game, 5 rebounds, 1 stock per game, 93% at the charity stripe, 37% at the three-point line, 39% from the floor, 36% on catch-and-shoot looks, 30% on spot-up attempts. And Latvia will play Germany in the qualifiers of the knockout round on Wednesday at 3:30 a.m. on ESPN+. The bottom line is, I'll speak more on this in the coming days as we start to preview this upcoming season. His role with the Thunder is so complicated, and I think that this will only become a heightened topic as we inch closer and closer to the season. Can he help the Thunder? Absolutely. I think Davis Bertans can really help OKC with his floor spacing, with his three-point shooting, and it would have to be, though, in a 10 to 12 minute a night role, and kind of play with the bench unit, kind of play against matchups where you need more offensive power, where you need more shooting, where you need floor spacing for the secondary group. He can help. There's some problems, though. Number one, first and foremost, can you get him to buy into the role that you're going to need him to? The role on OKC is going to be 10-ish minutes when you do play, but many a stretch where you're DNP-CD, just you're not playing. You're just not playing. Can you get Davis Bertans to buy into that role? I don't know if you can or can't, but that's going to be the first hurdle. The second thing is he can't really become a fixture of the rotation. Even if he's really good to help the Thunder win games, he cannot become a fixture of the rotation because you have to keep him out of games. You cannot play him in more than 75% of games. He has to play less than 75% of games. And at the end of the day, even if he's helping the Thunder win, this is a business. And for the sake of the Thunder, having a cleaner cap sheet next year and everything else, you are going to want to play him in less than 75% of games. Because if you do, you can then waive him for $5 million. No harm, no foul. It's an easy drop in the bucket for an NBA team. If you play him in more than that, you owe him $16 million, which would be second on the team. So, actually be third on the team because Lou Dort will have 16.5 next year. But still, he's second on the team right now with $17 million. $16 million is owed to him next year if you play him in more than 75% of games. Play him in less, you can cut him for $5 million. And that's the most important part. Even if he's helping you swing some games, that is not more important than saving that money for a team who's going to need to manage the cap very, very well. And so then that hurts you in terms of trying to find a groove for him, trying to find a place in the rotation for him, and of course, much less playing him all season. It also hurts maybe a little bit on the trade market where what team is willing to play him in more than 75% of games to pay him $16 million next year? I don't think that there is one out there. And so it becomes a dilemma of what do you do with Davis Bertans and what is he comfortable with and what does he want to do? What do you want to do? And when to use those games, against that 75% mark. And Davis Bertans can make things a bit messy if he wants to. He can also just accept his role. And I think that if he accepts that role, it might not come to fruition this season because of that percentage game played marker, but it could come into fruition next summer, where if he plays that role and accepts, hey, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be engaged on the bench, I'm going to help these young guys any way that I possibly can. I'm going to, whenever I get my opportunity, splash in a couple threes, provide floor spacing, and provide a winning impact. and I'm not going to pout, I'm not going to do anything, to cause a distraction, then that can lead him to getting a lucrative contract in the summer as far as role players go. Of course, he's not going to make up the $16 million per year that he's got on this deal, but if he can show that he's willing to play a 10-minute a role night and even take some DNPs along the way, if he can show he's willing to do that, his three-point shooting is what every NBA team needs. You can never have enough three-point shooters. You just never can. And so, especially from that big man spot, especially to help your secondary unit, if he's comfortable coming off the bench and comfortable playing a reduced role, it can really help his NBA career, in my opinion. So it's just a matter of what the Thunder do, because I'm not sure if he wants to adapt to that role or not. I don't think that you, of course, can cut him on that salary that he's on right now, because you'd owe him the $17 million this year and the 16 next year, probably. I don't think that you just want to get rid of that money right now, just in terms of like waiving him. Although I'm not really sure how that would work. I'd have to ask around about if you've cut him, he's not going to play in 75% of games this year. Obviously, he played in 0. So maybe you can just eat the money right now like you would anyway, and move him along. I'm not really sure how that would work. I have to ask around about that. But nonetheless, it's a big number to cut either way. $17 million outright to not play for you. And then, is there a team out there that would take a trade for him whenever you're not going to want to play him in those big games anyway, and then you just kind of move the problem around? However, another dilemma, another option is, this is why you stockpile 1 billion second-round picks. It's to attach to guys like Bertans, who have massive contracts that you want to pay a rebuilding team to take, to help you out and to be on the opposite end of where you were the past couple of years. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be one of the underlying stories of this season, no matter whenever it gets solved, before training camp, after training camp, before the deadline, after the deadline, in the summer, whenever it gets solved, it'll be there for the Thunder. But I can't wait to see how it unfolds, because I think it's two-toned. I think that Davis Bertans can truly help the Thunder. I think that there's also, though, it's a much messier path if you have him help the Thunder than if you just go about your way limiting and even maybe even not playing him at all this season. But we don't know which way that they land on that yet, and that's still to be decided. We'll keep you updated on Locked On Thunder whenever we do get that answer. Again, you can text the show 405-963-3686. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one